meeting will begin in a few minutes. We encourage anyone joining via Zoom to take a short survey using the QR code or link currently being displayed. The link can also be found in the Q&A section of the Zoom. Good evening. I'm Hector Garcia, Senior Director, External Affairs for the MTA Long Island Railroad. Welcome to the MTA's first public information session of the new Long Island Railroad service to Grand Central Madison and the draft schedules for all Long Island Railroad branches. The draft timetables were released on June 2nd and are available on the MTA's website. Our goal is to ensure that customers understand how Long Island Railroad service will change when this new plan launches at the end of the year. Tonight's session will be recorded and will be available on our website. This will be followed by 2 additional sessions on Thursday, June 30th and Thursday, July 7th from 6 to 7 p.m. During these sessions, we will ask questions via chat for those that register to participate. To ask a question, use the Q&A function on the Zoom app and it will be added to the list. Following these information sessions, a virtual public meeting where the public will have a chance to offer comments on the service plan will be held on Wednesday, July 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. During tonight's session, you will hear from a few experts who I will introduce shortly, and they will present on the benefits of the new terminal and service, the logic behind the schedules, and how customers can plan to use the many new travel opportunities. After the presentation, they will hang around during the Q&A to help us answer some of your questions. Tonight's virtual public information meeting will begin with remarks from Rob Free, the Long Island Railroad Senior Vice President of Operations, about the service opportunities provided by the completion of the Long Island Railroad Expansion Project and the completion of Grand Central Madison. Next, Joe Kristen, VP, Deputy Program Executive for Grand Central Madison, will discuss some construction highlights. Following Joe, Jen Uline, the Terminal Manager for Grand Central Madison, will present on the customer experience at the terminal and on some of the amenities our passengers can expect. Next, Charlie McKiernan, the Long Island Railroad's Chief Planning Officer, will explain the benefits of some of the service changes and will explain what went into the planning process in greater detail. Then, Customer Experience Strategist Sunny Zheng will explain how customers can view their new options. Following the presentation, we will have moderated Q&A led by John McCarthy, the Chief External Relations Officer for the MTA. We've also received questions in advance. We won't be able to answer every question we receive tonight, but we will try to cover the major themes, and we'll be updating the project website with FAQs to supplement tonight's conversation. This meeting comes at the very beginning of the public engagement process for this new service. We're grateful that you're here to join us and look forward to more occasions in the months to come. With that, let me introduce Rob Free, Senior Vice President of Operations. Rob?
Thank you, Hector. Good evening, everyone. I would like to touch on some of the monumental operational benefits that Grand Central Madison brings to the Long Island Railroad. The opening of Grand Central Madison is a generational event. We're not just opening a station, but a major terminal in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. But I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the impact of 2 other major projects that were strategically planned in order to enhance Grand Central Madison service: Montauk Branch double track and Mainline third track. The culmination of all these projects provide immense benefits to the Long Island Railroad and, most importantly, to our customers. Some of these benefits may not be visible, but I can assure you they are significant. Let me start with the reconstruction of Harold Interlochen. This reconstruction consisted of realignments of tracks, new switches, new signals, and most impactful, bypass tracks that will allow Amtrak trains to traverse Harold Interlochen without interfering with Long Island Railroad trains as they currently do. The net gain from all this work is increased throughput and speeds. Yards have been expanded, tracks have been extended, such as the Mid-Suffolk Yard, Massapequa Pocket Track, and the Great Neck Pocket Extension, all of which provide greater capacity to store equipment for increased service. Jamaica Station has a new platform, which will be in full use for Grand Central Madison service, and is absolutely vital to increasing the throughput in Jamaica. I want to be clear about that because I know how important it is. The Long Island Railroad could not expand service as we currently are, and certainly not to the level planned once construction is completed at Harold Interlochen and the East River tunnels. We have a quick video illustrating the impacts of the current operation with connections and how the new service will improve this. Nick?
When we open Grand Central Madison, we'll be running 40% more trains than we are today. Most of those trains will go through Jamaica Station. To deliver this increase in service reliably, we've had to rethink how we move trains and people through the station. Currently, Jamaica operates with scheduled cross-platform connections. Trains wait for each other to arrive to make the connections. But that means when one train is late, the connecting train is also delayed, along with passengers who don't need to transfer. Meanwhile, other trains behind the connection must wait outside the station until a track is cleared. Those delays are felt throughout the system. Even when the connection is made, the trains can't all leave right away. Brooklyn-bound trains must wait for eastbound trains arriving on track 4 to pass first before they can move. Some Penn trains have to cross in front of each other. The new plan is designed to avoid this and keep trains and people moving. It replaces scheduled connections with transfer opportunities. Trains to and from Manhattan will let customers on and off, then depart promptly. For most people who aren't making a transfer, no time will be wasted. If you are transferring, not only are we running more trains, every train will stop, so the next train to your destination will be along in only a few minutes. To avoid congestion caused by Brooklyn trains having to cross in front of trains going the other way, most Brooklyn service will now operate as a shuttle between the separated tracks 11 and 12 at Jamaica and Atlantic Terminal. This also lets us boost Brooklyn service by 28%, with trains running roughly every 12 minutes at rush hour and 20 minutes at other times. All these changes add up to more efficient, reliable, and frequent service through Jamaica and across the entire system.
As you can see, we are currently relying on trains to arrive at Jamaica Station at the same exact time as trains from other locations, some as far away as Montauk. It's not the most reliable system. Again, this is why the use of the new platform in Jamaica is essential to increasing throughput and running a reliable, on-time service. There are also tremendous enhancements to our service. We're operating train service to 2 major terminals in Midtown Manhattan, one on the west side and one on the east side. We're increasing overall train service. We're increasing reverse commuting opportunities, improving the frequency of train service, providing customers with more options, reducing commute times for some. Service will be more reliable, which means getting to your destination on time. And resiliency of service, whether for operational disruptions or maintenance or construction work, such as the upcoming Amtrak East River Tunnel Rehabilitation Project. Now, when we talk about operational disruptions, there's a tendency to focus on major events, a shutdown of service, significant delays out of a terminal, but we're also talking about everyday experiences that impact travel, whether it be from mechanical failure, a signal failure, police assistance, medical assistance, or even just a train operating behind schedule, which negatively impacts following trains by either slowing them down or even stopping, waiting for the situation ahead to clear. With the increased infrastructure, following trains will now be able to continue to operate at normal speed, thereby making it invisible to customers on surrounding trains. It's important to understand resiliency of service and why it is so imperative. To simplify, resiliency means we can continue to operate trains even during an event which impacts operations. As an example, using a major event, a shutdown or significant delays at a Penn station, Customers will now be able to commute out of Grand Central Madison, which is also located in Midtown Manhattan, only a short distance away. As you can see with these projects, they are not only planned or designed based on current operations, but future operations as well. There is a forward-looking mindset to plan for growth and the what-ifs. This enables the railroad to accommodate changing travel patterns, ridership increases, as well as continuing to provide train service to our customers during an event which would normally shut the railroad down. Our customers will not only feel, but see the positive impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Now let me introduce Joe Kristen, VP and Deputy Program Executive, for an update on project construction.
Thank you, Hector. With major construction wrapping up, we're in the home stretch, putting the final touches on the Grand Central Madison Concourse. And as you can see here, it's a new 700,000 square foot terminal, which runs alongside Madison Avenue from 43rd Street to 48th Street. Grand Central Madison has 4 new entrances from Madison Avenue, as well as new entrances from the existing spaces of Grand Central Terminal and the cross passageways at 45th Street and 47th Streets. The new terminal will have 8 tracks and 4 platforms on 2 new levels below the existing lower level of Grand Central Terminal. Tracks are fully separate from Metro-North Railroad, ensuring that neither railroad causes delays to the other. As elements are completed, we're working on the commissioning of new systems, safety and security certification, and training Long Island Railroad employees to become familiar with the territory so they can safely operate trains and perform maintenance on the infrastructure. During training, employees operate trains and walk in the terminal and tracks, learning critical infrastructure, which includes signals, switches, station configurations, and emergency egress. This training ensures safe operations of trains and provides a seamless integration of the new service into the existing operation come opening day. We're also conducting operational simulations, emergency drills, and evaluating our evacuation procedures for both the terminal and the tunnel environment, which includes close coordination with FDNY and MTAPD. Hector?
Thanks, Joe. Next, Jen Uline, Terminal Manager of Grand Central Madison, will provide us with an update on what she is doing to make sure that we are ready to welcome new customers.
Thank you, Hector. You know, as New Yorkers, we have the best city in the world, the most expansive and complex transit system in the country. And as a representative of the Long Island Railroad Stations Department, we are so excited to welcome you to this monumental and historic initiative, Grand Central Madison. From a design approach on our concourse level and carried throughout our mezzanine, there are 4 identifiable nodes representing 45th to 48th Streets. Each wellway connecting the 2 floors are identifiable by unique color schemes that are carried through the terrazzo floor and glass tile and are representative of different aspects from nature: grass, sky, twilight, and ocean. And on the concourse, the street number for each node is beautifully depicted in the terrazzo inlay flooring. The entire terminal really is quite spectacular. As some of you know, this expansive terminal was constructed deep into bedrock. 17 escalators serve between the concourse to the mezzanine from 45th to 48th Street on a 2-minute vertical transportation ride. And from the mezzanine to the upper and lower caverns, there are 16 escalators spanning 4 platforms, elevators from the concourse to Metro-North's areas, and elevators from the concourse to the mezzanine. And for our customers, ticket office personnel will be available to answer questions and support ticket sales at our ticket office located adjacent to the public restrooms and MTA police. Ambassadors will be available to assist customers with mobility needs through our Long Island Railroad Care program, as well as to provide information and wayfinding. We will work closely with our partners at Metro-North Railroad to help our customers get to where they need to go. From Montauk to Manhattan, Connecticut to Poughkeepsie, throughout the 5 boroughs and places abroad and beyond, we are excited to move people in a moving way. For customer amenities, a ticketed waiting room features a seating area, charging capabilities, a dedicated customer service office, family restroom, and a mother's lactation room. To enhance the experience, customers will have the ability to retrieve their lost and found items turned into Grand Central Madison before they are sent to our central lost and found office at Penn Station. At opening, we will have a reduced number of available ticket vending machines, but more are slated for the future, providing additional opportunities for customers traversing throughout the concourse and mezzanine levels. While there's lots to do and lots to see in this neighborhood of Manhattan, our Grand Central Madison Concourse will feature a photography exhibit, mosaic art, and digital displays, coupled with future retail opportunities that will add to the overall customer experience. We look forward to welcoming you soon as the Grand Central Service opens a world to explore, connecting Long Islanders to Manhattan, Connecticut, and the beautiful Hudson region, and beyond, while conversely opening a new avenue for folks to explore Long Island's beautiful beaches, vineyards, and diverse communities. And we can't wait to see you.
Thanks, Jen. Next up is Charlie McKiernan, Chief Service Planning Officer, with an overview of the new schedules.
Thank you, Hector. As ridership began its recovery after the height of COVID reductions, we began to see some new patterns emerging, with peak periods becoming somewhat flatter and less concentrated, and a move toward higher ridership in the very early parts of the peak and shoulder peak periods. Ridership became heavier between 5 and 6 a.m. and between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. Additionally, midday, evening, and weekend ridership is rising quickly. Our new schedules emphasize these patterns with more robust opportunities during these periods than we had in the past. Along with those unexpected changes to commuting patterns, as the workplace evolved due to COVID, there was also a significant research and surveying that went into the development of the service plan. Ridership surveys and geocoding showed us that about 45% of our ridership was destined for the east side of Manhattan, making Grand Central the preferred terminal for those customers. In addition to these customer needs, we also need to plan for major construction work on the existing Penn Station infrastructure, much of which has been waiting for this moment to begin. Amtrak has a major rehabilitation of the East River tunnels, as Rob spoke about earlier, coming very soon. This project will take tunnels out of service one at a time for a thorough rebuilding. Coupled with that, construction of the westbound bypass and eastbound reroute will be taking place in Harold Interlocking, reducing conflicts and improving capacity through the busiest interlocking in North America, and making it easier for our sister railroad, Metro North, to provide service to and from Penn Station via its Penn Station Access project. While these projects will ultimately improve service and reliability at Penn Station, in the near term, they reduce capacity in and out of Penn, limiting the amount of service we can operate there and making our new Grand Central Madison station even more important to our customers. When writing the new schedules, we had to balance what our surveys showed, the limitations of this infrastructure work, and the constraints of available infrastructure, train fleet, and employment. It required some out-of-the-box thinking and a complete rewrite of the timetable for efficiency, reliability, and convenient service intervals at each of our stations. Service to and from Brooklyn has been increased by 28%. We are running more trains more often on regularly spaced intervals, making all stops. Most trains will start and end at Jamaica on track 11 or 12. This allows us to avoid the clumsy left turns, if you will, in front of oncoming traffic and move more trains and riders to and from Manhattan more reliably. East of Jamaica, major branches will run a zoned service during rush hour. This means that one train would serve the outer segment of the stations along the branch, and the next train would serve the inner segment, with one or two stations in common that would allow customers to transfer between those trains if they want to, say, travel intra-island or use a different terminal. For instance, on the Babylon branch, one train serving Penn Station will make stops from Babylon to Montauk. Another train serving Grand Central would originate at Montauk and make stops to Rockville Center. If a Lyndonhurst customer got on the Penn Station train and wanted to go to Grand Central, he or she could transfer at Montauk and eliminate the need to change at Jamaica. Of course, that same Lyndonhurst customer could still change at Jamaica or wait for the next Grand Central opportunity directly from their station. The choice is there for them. This pattern occurs at multiple places around the railroad, allowing this type of convenient transfer opportunity and opening up many options for the trip that suits you best.
Thank you, Charlie. Our next speaker is Customer Experience Strategist Sunny Zeng.
Thank you, Hector. On June 2nd, we released the new schedules on our project website at new.mta.info/Grand Central Madison. We realized that these timetables are laid out somewhat differently than what some of you may be used to seeing. They were designed to best group our stations into individual timetables based on the new service patterns on our branches. To view all your options, you can also use our new future trip planner available at gcmtrips.mta.info. For those of you who are used to the Long Island Railroad Train Time app, we hope this interface will be very familiar to you. So here's the page. Feel free to open it on your computer and follow along. The first example I will pull up is what Charlie just mentioned, which is a customer trying to get from Lyndonhurst to Grand Central on the weekday. So as you can see, the interface very closely matches what Train Time has now, and we have all three options available. Some trains, you're best off transferring at Montauk. The transfer at Montauk is short. The train will be right behind the one you're getting off of. And even though every train stops at Jamaica, you will no longer have to change at Jamaica for service to Grand Central. Some trains, you may be better off changing at Jamaica, while others, or you can wait for one of the through trains to Grand Central, of which there are many at rush hour. I also want to bring up an example that clearly shows many of the benefits that the new schedule brings to our region. Grand Central to Ronkonkoma on Monday morning. This is a trip that today, if you miss the 6 o'clock out of Penn Station, you'll be waiting an hour and a half. As you can see, we have service throughout the rush hour going eastbound in the reverse peak direction for those who are commuting to destinations along the main line and for discretionary travel. This is a significant increase from what we have today. If we look later on in the day, we can also see that these 2 trains per hour continues all throughout the day, middays, evenings, and weekends. This is double current service and made possible by all our infrastructure investments over the past 10 years.
Thank you, Sunny.
When
You still on?
When these schedules are finalized later in the fall, we will upload them into the Real Train Time app. Until then, please feel free to explore this website. That's gcmtrips.mta.info. Now, I will turn it back to Hector to begin the Q&A portion of tonight's program.
Thank you, Sunny. We'll now turn to moderator Q&A. Please submit your questions in the Q&A box on the Zoom app. We'll try to get as many as we can, and we'll be consolidating questions and posing them to some experts live. The project team is also reviewing these questions and will be responding in some in writing through the app itself. With that, I'll turn it over to John McCarthy, Chief External Relations for the MTA, who will get us started.
Thanks, Hector, and thanks to the panel for all the great work, and welcome, everybody. Just before we hop into Q&A, I just want to sort of lean in a little bit on some of the stuff Rob said. We're here at the MTA also working regionally on a lot of major projects, and one that stands out is the gateway tunnels from New Jersey that are long planned, not yet started. This is our gateway. Those tunnels are needed in from New Jersey because there's need for redundancy, resiliency, and greater capacity. Those are many years away. We have that built, and later this year they will be open for business. And just a little prop, this is bedrock from underneath Manhattan bedrock, okay? A lot of work went into this project. We know a lot of years, a lot of effort. But it's really great when it's coming to a conclusion. So I want to thank this panel and all the people over the years who've worked on this. But this is a great moment for Long Island, Queens, and the region. So let's jump into questions and get to learn more about the project and answer people's questions as they come in. So one of the things, I'm going to turn to Charlie McKiernan, who's the godfather of the scheduling here, who's done a lot of work on this. And I, as someone who works down at 2 Broadway in Lower Manhattan, I take the train directly into Brooklyn. One of the a couple of questions we have coming in related to Brooklyn service. What is the Brooklyn service going to be like? I know you went into it that it's changing, but is there going to be direct service? Why can't there be direct service? And what is going to be in place of that direct service?
Right. So, John, there will be some limited direct service to Brooklyn, specifically the Babylon Branch, Hempstead, and West Hempsteads during the peaks. And in the off-peak period, West Hempstead trains will also serve the terminal. What we were able to do by segregating the Brooklyn service to tracks 11 and 12 is increase the frequency, not only to and from Jamaica to Atlantic Terminal itself, but it also gave us the opportunity, which we don't have under the current schedule, to add a lot of stops at both East New York and Nostrand Avenue. The other thing that it afforded us the opportunity to do is to have more regular service to and from Brooklyn. In the peak periods, right now, it is scheduled for approximately every 12 minutes. And in the off-peak period, we're going from half-hourly service to 3 opportunities an hour, generally speaking, once every 20 minutes. So the other big winner with the Brooklyn service is a reverse commute from Brooklyn. Because of the way we operate now, trains in the morning and even in the evening have to make quick turns and get back out east to make second trips. By having the separate service, it allows us to add those stops for the reverse peak commute on the Atlantic Branch.
Thanks, Charlie. And then just a follow-up on that. If you're coming into, what percentage, if you know, of our customers currently coming into Brooklyn are staying in Brooklyn as opposed to going downtown? And since, we're involved in the subways here as well, that path is usually from, Atlantic up into the Manhattan stations. Would someone go to Grand Central then, or what is the, travel patterns anticipated?
Right. So currently, approximately 7% of our customers utilize Brooklyn. Most of them, 5% of the 7%, continue on to other destinations, mostly Lower Manhattan. 2% of that 7% actually have Brooklyn as a final destination.
Thanks, Charlie. We have a sort of straightforward question, which is when is this going to start? When is it opening? Rob Frey, since you're you run operations at the Long Island Railroad, I assume you're anticipating for that. Maybe a little bit of color on what goes into that. But do you have a date, month, or based on this project, a year?
Nope. We're on schedule to open up by the end of this year, as previously announced. Everything is going according to plan. Construction is progressing. As was mentioned previously, training is continuing. Our employees are going down into the caverns, into the station, becoming familiar with it, learning the systems, readying them. We're going to actually, within a short amount of time, be simulating service with a pre-revenue service demonstration, which means we're going to be simulating a portion of the rush hour, which is going to test the scheduling, but more importantly, testing out the systems within the tunnel environment to make sure they're robust and reliable. So as you had asked, we're on schedule for the end of this year, and we plan on moving forward.
Thanks, Rob. So, Rob, the train operators, the engineers are running, they're not running revenue service, but they're running those trains into Grand Central now.
Yes, we're currently running what we call training trains every day down in the tunnels going back and forth in the tunnels with several engineers on each train and conductors as well. They have to learn the system. And in addition to that, we're also training right-of-way employees who have to be qualified on the system as well, the physical characteristics, which means being familiar with all the signals, the switches, all the territories, the station environment. So when they operate down there, they're qualified to do so safely and reliably.
Okay, thanks, Rob. And then, another pretty straightforward question, but important to everybody is, what is the fare zone into Grand Central Madison? Jen, or who wants to tackle that? Which, Rob, do they have a fare structure into Grand Central? I assume it's the same as Penn. Is that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe that's the plan. So it would be considered what we call Zone 1, same as Penn Station.
Okay, so if you're someone who holds buys a ticket and it's east of or west of Jamaica, you're going into Manhattan, whether it's the Penn Station or Grand Central, that is the same fare. A question coming in about timetables, and Sonny, maybe you can elaborate. You did touch on it in your example, but can you explain where people will see where they will connect to Jamaica, how they understand that, how they know, when that train is available? From my review of the schedule, it looks this pretty robust service through Jamaica, but we're not, as the video showed, following the same patterns of holding a train, disrupting the customers when we're waiting for a late train. How are people going to kind of get an idea of what's available as far as cross-platform or otherwise connections?
So we recommend that all customers use the Train Time app. The app will be updated once the final schedules are available this fall. It will tell you what train to take to Jamaica and what to connect to and where that train will be. In addition, in Penn and Grand Central, we'll be putting up a lot more of what we call alpha boards. Those are the big boards that list every stop and how to get there. So it's very easy for you to plan your trip using those, know what time and what train you need to take out of that terminal, and where you need to transfer to get to where you're going.
John, I just would like to add to that. With the new service, we're actually calling it transfer opportunities. And the reason we designate it as such is because what will happen with Grand Central Madison service, every train will stop in Jamaica. So rather than designating it as a connection and tying up Jamaica, we're actually offering more opportunities to people to get to their destinations, and that's why we like to designate it as transfer opportunities, whether it be Atlantic Terminal, Long Island City, Hunters Point Avenue, Penn Station, and of course Grand Central Madison service. And as far as cross-platform, while we recognize that happens a majority of the time, there are a decent amount of times that take place now, that it's actually not across the platform. The customers actually have to walk up and over to other platforms, which is inconvenient as well. But in that situation, when we're considering it a connection. So right now it's transfer opportunities, which give people much more options.
Okay, and so that would apply also, because we have some questions coming in on, if you're in Midtown on the west side, later in the evening, you've gone to a Ranger game or a Knick game, and your train is leaving Grand Central Madison at that time. Will the customer know or have an idea, based on what Sonny said, to get on a train at Penn, get to Jamaica, make that switch, or get to Woodside and make that switch?
Absolutely. Sonny, I don't want to step on your toes there, but the Train Time app will provide that information where customers will know, while there's not a train out of Penn Station to where I'm going to, it'll let them know that if I go to Jamaica or some other location, depending where they're traveling to, that there is a transfer opportunity to get to where they need to go.
Thanks, Rob. Here's a question coming in from Queens. There's a lot of stations in Queens, and we think Long Island Railroad, Long Island, Nassau, Suffolk. What is the service situation in this new schedule for residents, Queens, who want to use our stations, both in AM, PM, and throughout the day?
Right, John. We actually made a concerted effort to add additional stops in the city zones, which includes Queens itself. It is part of the Long Island Railroad. We consider it part of our constituency. So with the additional trains, there will be new stopping patterns, as are evidenced by the schedules that are out there. And there are some pretty good increases in service at the Queens stations.
Thanks, Charlie. And one of the things I've seen is they're during, post COVID, the start of COVID, as our ridership returns, we're seeing ridership return in some of those neighborhoods a little quicker than elsewhere. So I assume that service is going to address that growth.
Yeah, that's part of the pattern that we picked up on, and it was part of our focus in rewriting the new timetables.
Okay. And then what about we have a couple questions here, and a few questions on the Port Washington branch, and specifically some of the run times on trains, express trains that are making more stops. I guess, Charlie, maybe you can sort of walk us through the Port Wash branch, what the service looks like, and maybe a little explainer on what to expect on that line.
Right. So we did not get all the infrastructure that we had hoped for or anticipated on the Port Washington branch. We came up a little shy on some track expansions in Port Wash itself. So just like all the other branches, we've created zone service on that branch. There are express trains. There are a few more stops than some of the express trains today. But in general, the additional travel time is, in the morning, it's the biggest increase. I think it's between 1 and 4 minutes on average. In the PM peak, it's actually about 1 minute of additional travel time. There is a 70% increase in the AM peak number of trains, and in the PM peak, it's a significant amount also. The number escapes me right now, but I think it's 43, 45%, somewhere around there.
So overall, on Port Washington, we have more trains throughout the day. We have more trains in the peak, and they're making more stops as they go along, and that's basically sums up the changing service patterns there.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And in the off-peak periods, we would like to have increased service, but because of the single track portion between Great Neck and Port Washington, simply really can't do better than half hourly.
And not to be a nag on Port Washington, but we'll stick because we're getting a couple of questions on this. If you're on Port Washington branch coming into town, is Woodside a possibility? Obviously that branch doesn't go through Jamaica, so this idea of like changing for the terminal you want to hit in Manhattan, is that where you would do it?
That is one of the locations. Great Neck is another one, and Bayside as well.
Okay. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Nick, do we have any other questions coming in? All right, we're looking at a question. This is Port Jefferson branch, a friend on the Port Jefferson line. Will they lose any direct PIN service that they currently have? This is Port Jeff.
No, they will not.
So they're getting the same amount of service into PIN.
Correct.
And they will also have Grand Central option? Or?
They will not have Grand Central option. Unfortunately, the diesel equipment, the dual mode equipment that we run into electrified territory will not fit in the tunnels going into Grand Central.
Okay, but again, the folks, if you're at Jamaica, you can make a change.
Yes.
to
Right.
to go there. Okay. Okay, and then as far as if you look at the Montauk branch and even Oyster Bay, what is the situation there as far as increases, decreases on service from those branches, which are diesel territories? That
Because of equipment limitations, unfortunately, we weren't able to expand on that service. But what the rewrite did give us an opportunity to do is rationalize some of that service, meaning currently some of that service is very on top of one another, so it's a little more spread out. We were able to increase a little bit of service on the Oyster Bay branch, overall about a 10% increase, and in the PM peak, a 20% increase. And those customers will continue to transfer at the locations that they do. In the case of the Oyster Bay customer, it will be Jamaica. In terms of the Montauk customer, it'll be Babylon and or Jamaica. And Port Jefferson, it will either be Huntington or Jamaica.
Thanks, Charlie. Question here about Grand Central Madison, the actual terminal space. Jen, do you have any details about the retail that's going in there? I think some people who have been down there, and I know there were groups coming in to take a look at it, there's obviously opportunity for retail. Any idea of the schedule, or what can people expect in that in the new terminal station?
That's a really good question, and similar to the Moynihan Train Hall, when we first opened, we didn't have any retail available to our customers. In 2023, there may be some pop-up kiosks that will be available, but we're really looking at 2024 to start filling those spaces. In the interim, any customer who's coming to the station, they can use any of the retail opportunities available to them at Grand Central Terminal, Metro North space currently, before they ascend to our space.
And then as far as the terminal experience goes, and you walked us through it in your remarks, but can you, is someone using the terminal, they are going up through the nodes. It's very much like you're centered onto your space. You're a savvy Long Island Railroad customer. You're going to know the front, back of the train, and then you go directly up through these nodes, and there's exits onto Madison from all the streets. Is that the case? 47th, where else?
So there's exits on 45th. There's an elevator exit that'll take you to 45th Street. 47th Street, currently there is access elevators and also escalators. And 1 Vanderbilt is going to be a major access point for our customers, especially if they're coming off of the New York City Transit subway system.
Okay. One of the things that we're seeing in a lot of the research, just based on the Midtown East rezoning and the growth in office space there, Class A office space, that's it's obviously an attractive place to work. So those that access to the station is going to be, I think, a great benefit. The other thing that some of the walks I've done down into the terminal with groups, we've had a lot of interest from Bronx, Westchester groups who have gravitated towards the easy connection. How can just walk us through what is we're very focused on regional connectivity. What is the connection availability to the Metro North line and vice versa?
Well, because we do have a lot of connections to Metro North through our Concourse area, customers will be able to utilize Long Island Railroad service to Grand Central Madison and then make those connections to Metro North up on either the dining concourse for the lower level of Metro North or on the main level for Metro North. I mean, this is just an exciting opportunity, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we're connecting all these regions together and actually 2 states together between Connecticut and New York. And I don't know what better way to do it than through Grand Central.
Okay. And here's a question that I will handle. The question is, when will you fix Penn Station? Okay, unrelated to Grand Central, but a very good question nevertheless. Look, one of the benefits of opening Grand Central Madison and having so much of the service go to Grand Central is that you have an opportunity, like a real unique opportunity, and this is something the governor, New York's governor, Kathy Hochul, has sort of hammered home, which is if you're going to fix Penn, you got to do it now because we have this other big project that's bringing Metro North into Penn Station. and adding 4 new stations in the Bronx. So I guess to answer that question, now is the time to fix Penn. Next question. Nick, what do you got for me here? All right, so this is a question, I guess it's another question from Queens. If, you know, are we making stops at Kew Gardens, Forest Hills, Woodside? What's the, you know, that seem to be, you know, regular stops on many of the trains? What's this, you know, do we have, what are the stop patterns on those city stops east of Woodside?
Well, Woodside itself sees a significant increase in service. As far as the transfer opportunities for Kew Gardens and Forest Hills, there are significant transfer opportunities, or, you know, of course, the train that you're on itself. But that will all be covered in the app that's coming out.
We strongly recommend customers traveling to Kew Gardens, Forest Hills, and Woodside to use the trip planner at gcmtrips.mta.info. It is a lot clearer. It is a lot clearer representing those stops than the timetables are.
John, just to try and give an order of magnitude for some of the improvement in services, city zone service is estimated to increase by 46%, reverse peak approximately 50%, and peak improved by 131%. Off-peak improved by 34%. So those are pretty impressive numbers for our city zone customers.
Thanks, Rob. And speaking of the city zone, we're getting a lot of questions continue to come in about the transfer situation at Jamaica. So even, you know, we've sort of seen the video, but I think one of the ways maybe we can impress upon people the importance of Jamaica in this schedule, the number of trains during a peak hour. Maybe Charlie, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but basically, what are we looking at as far as trains? One of the, you know, just say through the 7 and 8 o'clock hour, 8 to 9 hour in the morning.
I don't have the specific numbers on hour by hour, but it's 159 trains as opposed to approximately 114 that we're operating now. So it's quite a few. And, you know, we did allude to it in my remarks, and the video did speak to it. But essentially, when you're westbound coming into Jamaica, you know, think of it like being on the LIE and you're headed westbound, and there are 3 lanes, or 4 if you include the HLV, and somebody in the right lane or the middle lane wants to make a left turn and headed westbound, go north. You're not only getting in the way of trains or cars behind you, but you're also getting in the way of trains going in the opposite direction. So that was the impetus behind putting Brooklyn as separate. And, you know, a big part of that was the ridership numbers. The vast majority of our customers want to go into Penn Station. We want to provide as many trains and service opportunities as possible, and the transfer opportunities are there. As we grow service in the future, there will be more transfer opportunities east of Jamaica. That is the plan and the goal.
Sure, Rob, you want to?
You know, just a rough estimate, but it's about 100 trains total for the AM peak period going through Jamaica. As Charlie said, the granularity of each hour, but it's approximately about 100 trains for the AM peak rush hour operating through Jamaica.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of trains stopping in Jamaica.
Yeah, certainly. That's better headway than which is the you know, the term of frequency of train than you have on some of the subway lines. So, and I was just doing the quick math. There's like 1 hour. I think it's close to 30 trains going west in the AM. One of the things that we get a fair number of questions on, and I see one here today, is on JFK and sometimes the lack of predictability of the Jamaica into Manhattan schedule, where if you miss something, you might have a 15, 18-minute wait, and then you run up, you look at the schedule board and you see that there's two trains right up against each other. And I guess that, Charlie, goes to some of what you've spoken about, which is sort of rationalizing the schedule by rewriting it. Is that spacing in this new schedule?
It is, and as Rob said, with that number of trains, the idea is that every few minutes there will be a train to your terminal of choice.
Thanks. Okay, so I have a question from Hector Garcia, because he's a big Islander fan, and he's asking about the UBS Arena, and from Baldwin to UBS Arena. Is that no, he wants to know service at the UBS Arena. What's the frequency of that? I think it changes this year, and Rob, you can probably weigh in, but this is the new station that was built between Queens Village and Belrose to service the new arena and Belmont Park.
Right, so currently at Elmont, the new station that was built, the south side platform is open, and it's served by Hempstead trains during events. Shortly in the next few months, the north side will be complete, and we're doing work in that area. It's an area that we call Queens Interlocking, and there is some switch work that's going on there. Once all that work is complete in the next few months, we'll be able to, and the north side platform is complete, we'll be able to stop mainline and Huntington trains at Elmont Station. With the new schedule, that will become a regular stop. Primarily, Elmont Station itself will be served by the Hempstead branch, but keeping in mind events, we will specifically reverse peak trains in the evening for, say, evening concerts or Islander games. Mainline and Huntington Port Jeffs will be making stops at that station as well.
Thanks, Charlie. Rob, question about a lot of the outages we currently have for work with the, what I would describe as a more resilient railroad with the addition of a third track, a lot of the work in Harold. What does this do as far as service planning? Is that, as far as planning for work, is there more flexibility? How does that work in general?
Absolutely, John. As I mentioned previously, the increased infrastructure allows us to operate around certain events, even construction or maintenance work. And I think one of the most significant impacts to all this is the bypass tracks at Harold Interlochen. As it was mentioned a couple times, Harold is the busiest interlocking in North America. I mean, you have Long Island Railroad trains from virtually all branches, in addition to Amtrak service as well, operating through this territory. So those bypass tracks will again allow Amtrak trains to operate through the Interlochen without getting in the way of our trains at all. Our trains will be able to continue on their way. So these enhancements, whether it's the third track, whether it's a medical assistance, as mentioned before, we'll be able to operate around that, and maintenance. Hopefully there won't be too much maintenance on the third track territory because it's all going to be brand new. All three tracks are basically going to be all redone and everything else. So we don't anticipate having to do too much maintenance in that territory.
Yeah. This is more of a statement rather than a question, but why don't you highlight the savings people have from now going to the east side and no longer having to take a subway? There's none of our finance guys are here to cry that they're losing out on that money. But Charlie, is that?
Yeah, I mean that's actually probably the biggest savings, because the run time from Jamaica to Penn Station is basically going to stay the way it is now. Grand Central Terminal is very similar. So the big savings is, as we said, 45% of our current customers are on the east side. So hopefully a vast majority of that 45% will no longer have to take the subway to the east side. They can go right there, and hopefully they're within a couple blocks.
Yeah, and Charlie, I think they're in addition to their savings of time, but I think they're getting at the savings of money and not having to get their
Well, yeah,
weekly
that's the
subway.
finance
Yes.
guys, you're right, but
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
All right, Joe, I'm just going to ask you a question because you seem to like, I guess construction is almost done, so your work is done. Nobody has any questions for you. But
was okay with that,
Yeah,
you know.
I know. I'm no pressure. So, but one question, I don't know if you can answer this or Jen, but people are asking like, how long does it take to? These are very deep escalators. I think they're the deepest in the system or close to it. We have on the far west side the new 7 train. I think that's pretty deep. What's the time it takes? Do either of you know?
Yeah, we like to go big here,
Okay.
right? So this project is it's the biggest in the system right now, and the escalators are the longest, about a 2-minute run.
Okay.
The vertical distance between the concourse and the platform mezzanine level down below is about 100 feet, and the run of the escalator itself is about 180 feet. So it takes about 2 minutes to traverse. But we encourage running up too, so right? You
Yeah,
make a little bit more time if you do that.
Well, one of the things that I think our customers should realize that in the existing Penn station, because of the capacity constraints, and Rob, you'll know this, the posting of tracks is very late in the game, so you get that mad rush to people. We're not going to have that problem, I hope, at Grand Central, where it's completely Long Island Railroad terminal, and we have the capacity to sort of announce tracks. People can get to their train at a pace that they are comfortable with. Is that, or Jen, maybe is that how we're
Well, I mean, it is ideal having the station all to ourselves, but we can't accommodate someone showing up late to the station.
No, well, yeah, that's a good point. Don't be late, but you can be a little early. You don't have to stand in front of the looking for your gate time at the on 33rd Street and then race down to Penn with thousands of your neighbors. All right, let me. I don't know the time situation here, but I just want to throw one to Sonny. Because Sonny, you're like very deep into schedules and understanding them and what the customer's take is, and we have so many questions coming in that we're going to answer online individually as best we can. Sonny, what jumps up at you? What's your like nugget of advice for customers? What's the the playbook here for anyone who's trying to really understand this schedule before they really come to opinions? Is it flexibility? What is it? What jumps out at you?
Probably the most important thing is to throw away any predispositions you have of the current schedule. We started from scratch when writing this. The goal here is to write a schedule for a railroad that runs smoothly and reliably and delivers as much service as we can to the customers in as effective and usable way as possible. The current schedule has its faults, has its nuances. We know about them. This is our chance to address them, and we've addressed them. We understand that the current schedule has been placed in for many, many decades, and this will be a hard transition for some, but we hope that in the end this will be a benefit for the region and for the island as a whole.
Thanks, Sonny. I'm going to kick it over to Hector, and I know that we are going to do a few more of these, and I think, as people dive in and get to understand their schedules, and then I hope to get out to, we'll go out to towns and villages and stations and really talk to folks with specifics, because the good thing is we're sort of getting out in front of this a few months, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss more. So Hector, over to you. Thanks.
Yep, I want to thank the panel and also the public for participating. We're at time, but I think this has been extremely informative. And remember, this is just the beginning of our public engagement process. Starting in the fall, we'll be out in force at stations and throughout affected communities to bring wider awareness about the changes to the service. But before we sign off, let me take a moment to thank you again, including the project team who's worked behind the scenes to make this happen. We encourage you to visit the website at new.mta.info/project Grand Central Madison to learn more about the schedules and to continue giving us feedback. Again, we encourage you to take this survey, use the QR code or the link provided. Thank you, and have a good evening.